Hi, you guys. This is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube Q&A video of the week. We have been doing this for a while, and thanks to all of you guys, by the way, that have been with me for years and years and years. We have a relationship now. We have built a strong foundation. I like to invite anyone that is new, that's not a long timer, to go to my website. The website is themodernshaman.net. There are a lot of resources for you there. If you'd like to sit with me one-on-one for a session, I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas, and you can come in my office here, or you can sit with me online. I do Zoom sessions, I do phone sessions, you name it. So there's really no boundaries or things that block us from one another now. We are boundless, and I love that. All right, so let me read the question. Here it is. Sorry about that. Gotta lean out. Nope, not the question. I grabbed the wrong paper. Okay, it says, "Hi Rachel, I wanted to ask you about empathic kids. It seems kids/everyone is more sensitive now. How do we handle empathic kids better?" Yes, my last video talked about empaths being the other side of the coin to anxiety, and people being born or growing up and having more and more anxiety. And I think that's because the human species, as we evolve, is moving more and more into our heightened antenna, our emotional body, and our parasympathetic response in our nervous system is very, very sensitive and heightened in its vibrational receptivity. And our bodies are like an antenna. They send out frequencies and they receive them, right? Or a two-way radio, a walkie-talkie, and satellite, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to make all of these analogies, but essentially our system is highly evolved in its sensitivity, and the children that they're coming in, it started kind of with indigo kids, which was my era, then there was like crystal kids and rainbow kids. I mean, we've given them many labels. It doesn't really matter. Essentially, our human species is evolving, and the nervous system and the emotional body, which is part of the way that we receive non-physical communication and energy. Non-physical communication is not new, right? We've been paying attention to body language, neurolinguistics. There's all sorts of studies, even in the psychology and that realm, that's tried to language and express and give system around our non-physical communication. With empathic kids, they are coming in like geniuses of the non-physical realm. Their emotional intelligence is off the charts. And so you are dealing with a little emotional genius. And they can very literally read your nervous system and are responding to it with their own nervous system and their own emotional language. So the first thing that I would say, and my piece of advice when you say, how do we handle the kids better, is I would say be more open, because they come in, as we all should, but they come in with very little blockage from emotional trauma. We've been doing this healing for so long. Our generation, man, we were just really plowing in with this whole passionate purpose to rid ourselves of ancestral blockages, bloodline blockages, trauma, and our karmic density of our family bloodline, like stuff that we came in with was just heavy and we're all trying to clear it. You talk with someone in my generation, and so many of us came in with that sense of purpose. They're like, I'm going to clean that family lineage up. I'm going to clear out all this toxic stuff in my family. And we have been doing it. We've been doing the freaking work. So the kids that are coming in, don't have the same density of that emotional trauma. So this is good, but we're almost so used to that. We're used to the blockage. We're used to having shielded ourselves and our auric field that when we come in contact with a little one and they have no emotional shield, they have no density in their auric field. Literally, it's like anything can come in and go. We don't know how to deal with that. We don't know how to teach. We don't have structures that support it, and they feel very emotionally unsafe. So the first thing I would say is to be as open as you can to meet them in that level of purity, because their emotional body is incredibly pure and pristine. And I don't mean innocence. These are old souls. They've been around the block. They're not innocent or ignorant. In fact, they're highly intelligent and wise. And so they're coming in with this wisdom, but with bodies that have no sense of emotional barrier. They're very open. And so we have to be willing to, number one, meet them at their emotional volatility level or emotional vulnerability level. Be incredibly open. That's going to feel like for us being nakedness or exposing ourselves, being honest, but beyond what we've been used to being honest with. Our generation, the generations above us, our species was in a different developmental process where we essentially hid our trauma. There's a lot of hiding and facade and putting on and fake it till you make it. These mottos of a system where we had to almost like engage with barriers. And the system worked with barriers, right? You dress for success. It's not transparent at all. It's not emotionally vulnerable or open. Instead, we have to gain that trust. And then once that trust is gained, then we can bring down the barriers. But we really don't know how to do that. It's very dysfunctional in the way that it's taught. The youth and the kids that are coming in, that doesn't make any sense to them. It's backwards because they're already whole and they're already trusting and they're already open and they're already honest and very transparent. And the energy is very pure and refined. So we have to ourselves bring that emotional openness out. We have to be willing to be honest, to mean what we say, speak with integrity, from little things to big things. So when you're going somewhere, especially with kids, they'll feel and read your energy and they'll speak to that level. And they'll say, I can tell you don't want to do this, whatever it is. You don't want to take me to my baseball game. Or I can tell that, and when really we just want to lay at home and watch a Netflix, or we want to do something, we want to have alone time, or we're tired, whatever. It's being honest. That's true. That's a truthful feeling. But our generation creates this facade or a lie or this discord with that energy where we cannot be as transparent. And so we say something like, well, no, I'm just tired. But the truth of that, if we were very transparent and pure in our expression and our emotional volatility, we could open a space that would hold a conversation like, you know what? You're actually reading me correctly. That's true. That's true. And I love you. And so I feel that I need to compromise something that I probably would rather relax or lay in this bed right now or take a nap. But I'm compromising a bit. And so there's difficulty with me because I love you more. And I know you want to go to this baseball game. So it requires more of us. When you ask what can we do or how can we handle them better, it's going to require more of you. It's going to take a laborious sense of effort for you to slow yourself down, be emotionally open in your language. And we're not used to communicating like that. So it takes some training on our part to actually speak what we say, speak it in love, not in coarseness, because the sensitivity, remember, they are like this highly, highly sensitive antenna. So they're picking up on everything. And then when you speak, also your tone, they're also very sensitive to sound because they're picking up on higher, I shouldn't say higher, I should say a bigger range of sound waves. This also is evolution with frequency and the evolution of our bodies being able to receive these higher levels of energy. We're going to have to open up to a wider range of waveforms, sound waves, light waves, all of these things. So they're sensitive to sound. They're sensitive to colors and light and flashing and this kind of thing, and movement and change. All that being said, we have to be sensitive with our tone and the way that we speak as well. We are used to the coarseness being okay for our species, and it is not when you don't have those emotional boundaries. The second thing I would say is to create a sense of emotional safety. Be deliberate about this. And I can just give you an example with my family, but essentially, you have to create an environment that allows for differences without judgment, because they are going to be different from you. And it should be different. There would be something wrong with the evolutionary process if they weren't different. If you and your kid felt like you were simpatico all the time, you were at the same vibration, there's a bit of like, okay, who's delayed here? Are you far behind or are they far behind? Like, there should be an evolutionary step of difference. This is part of progression and what it looks like as you schematically evolve, right? And adapt to that evolution. There should be some variance that requires growth. So creating that emotional safety, at least for us in our family and the way that we do it, and my kids are empathic, of course, way more so than I am, and they are sensitive and pick up on things way more than I do. They just haven't quite lived on this planet and this body in this time frame long enough to gather a vocabulary around that expression yet, but they will, and it'll be better than me. It should be, right? They should progress, just like every student should surpass the teacher. That's the whole point of it, is to encourage that growth and expression and the conduciveness of that growth. So anyways, back to creating a safe emotional environment for things to be different, for things not to be judged, to listen more than we tell them to be a part of our system. I would say educate them on the system as it is. Educate them on the way the world is now, the way things kind of go, and how to be successful as it is now. But always encourage the empowerment of them to change those systems, to make them better, that you're going to have a better way of doing it, and you should do it that way. If you can find a faster way, a more creative way, a more efficient way, a more compassionate and kind way of doing the things, do it by all means. That's why you came here, to better the society than the one that I'm showing you and teaching you how to be a part of, right? When we tell our kids, this is the way to be successful now, these are the tools that you need, these are the things I'm trying to set you up with, but these are systems that you should surpass, and you will surpass. So look for those loopholes. Look for the ways that you can express your individuality and your purpose and your uniqueness and that autonomy that you have as an individual, and express them. And the third thing I will say is help them with their own sense of boundaries. If there are areas that they feel overwhelmed by, have that conversation. Is there anything that you feel overwhelmed with? Because they are such a sensitive antenna, they will receive more information than oftentimes we are receiving. So we don't know what they're getting. We don't know what they're picking up. We don't feel it as deeply as they feel it. And so it can be hard for us, not that we mean to overlook it, but it's easy to be callous or be uncaring when it comes to what they're feeling, because we're not feeling it with that level of intensity, right? Imagine if you had a hearing aid and it was turned up all the way all the time and you couldn't turn it down. When your kid says, this music is too loud for me, or these people are too loud for me, or this environment is too loud for me, or too distracting, or too much, or I'm tired now. And you think, I spent all this money, I created this big party, I invited all these big people. You're supposed to follow the system. They're expressing to you their need for a boundary or a safe environment that feels like they can say when it's too much. This is also driving us back to nature. If you see this with a lot of the kids, they're needing that groundedness and that quiet and that stillness, but they haven't been taught how to create it. A lot of the kid world is actually force feeding them the opposite. Chaos, a lot of activity, do this, go here, watch this video, and the videos are moving fast and the plots change quickly and the characters change quickly, and so the attention span is shorter and shorter, and the foods we feed them don't last and sustain as long, and so they're hungry more often, their cravings coming. So the pacing is picking up. So listen to when they say that those environments don't support them and shift accordingly. Create a space where you have time and you check in with them. That's another thing that I do with my kids. It's kind of just like a weekly little check-in. I've noticed that this works better when I do it individually, one-on-one, because when we do it as a family, it's good, and we do that also. And we have a sense of like conflict resolution where we sit down and we say, like, what's really going on here? When I notice kind of passive aggression, or when I notice like they're at their wits' end, they're tired more, they're crying more, they're upset more, things bother them more, they're more easily angered, they push each other's buttons more. This is kind of that frayed edge of energy, right? And sensitivity of like, the world is too much for me. Then we slow down, we go in the opposite. Instead of speeding up and pushing them and like, you got this, you can do it, where that worked for our generation, I kind of go the opposite direction. Let's slow down, let's talk about it. And I essentially we talk about it one-on-one, and then sometimes we bring that together as a family unit if it's involving more than one kid or something. And we language that. And oftentimes I will ask them, how do you feel like you're doing in your life? How do you feel like you're doing on this planet? Are you enjoying your life? Are you enjoying being in this family? Are you enjoying your friends and social interactions? What about school? How does that make you feel now? And it's different every year, and teachers are different. The structure that they're in is different. The expectations on them are different all the time. So engaging in those kind of conversations, the listening, and then providing that sense of emotional safety, like I said, that's non-judgmental, where whatever they say is okay just to allow them to say it. You don't have to have an answer or an emotional response right away. In fact, it's better that you don't. It's better that you let that sit and that you let the expression simply come out, because they're still formulating their sense of perspective around it also. They don't quite know how they feel about it, and the world in itself doesn't quite know yet. So that's all right. It can be incubation time. It can be womb time or expression time without creation. Let the expression come in that safe environment. And then I would encourage hugs. That heart chakra is so open. Don't ever underestimate that sense of physical connection with an empathic kid. Sometimes they'll recoil away from it because they're so sensitive, but it's deeply needed. It's deeply needed because they are feeling everything with such intimacy. It's like they're engaging with everything and everyone with intimacy. So when they are physically in contact and your heart chakras touch, and there's a slow mimicked breathing here that's syncopated, this is very, very healing to our empathic children, to empaths, to all people. Yeah. But in particular, when you asked about handling them better, when they can get to that moment where their breathing syncopates and moves in harmony with another in a hug, their shoulders will drop, that parasympathetic nervous system softens and continues to open. And they will gain a sense of strength from that. The emotional resiliency and strength in someone who can maintain their purity through a high level of wisdom and discernment, not innocence and ignorance, but they are bringing in a high level of intelligence and discernment and wisdom. When they can sustain that, the strength and that emotional openness is incredible and very powerful as a force on this planet for change. And it is bringing in change. I hope this video is encouraging to you all. I'll be back here next week with another video. Blessings.